And we are live. Will, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Very good. I'm in a different location,
I
as
was
some
going to
of
say
you
you're
might
in a different
notice.
setting on his holidays.
Still committed to the cause.
Well, there you go.
So, welcome to the show. We're going to dive into a few stories. As usual, we're just picking out the latest news that's happening in the AI space, and really just give you our sort of reflections on those sort of latest topics and share with you what's happening. So we're going to keep each story to a limited 5 minutes only. So we're going to rattle through them. And what's on the let's kick off, Will. Let's go. I've got my timer going and we'll go for it. What's on the first story?
We have an OpenAI deal. This is a big one, to be fair. More because of, I think, the direction that AI is heading. And by the way, quickly, not to eat into the 5 minutes too much, these are all personal opinions. Often we've seen these articles 15 minutes before we record and we discuss our thoughts briefly, but then this is literally quite a raw opinion. So, bear that in mind as we talk. But yes, back to this. OpenAI staffers are to sell $6 billion in stock to SoftBank, as well as some other big investors. And this is really interesting because of, if this deal goes through, the valuation of OpenAI will come out the other side at $500 billion, which would make it the world's most valuable startup. It would surpass the likes of Visa, MasterCard, all these other big names. The article references specifically like Elon Musk's SpaceX. And that is wild to me. An AI company is going to sit in the top 20, probably, depending on the day, top 20 most valuable companies in the world. And yeah, that's just wild to me. I think that's really showing where this frontier is going. It's also interesting when you look into these valuations, whether that is a warranted valuation. If you look at the revenue of the likes of Visa or MasterCard, they're greater than OpenAI's revenue, which is very low compared. So yeah, it's just a really interesting discussion whether these great valuations are warranted. The fact that this valuation has been reached or will be reached if this deal goes through. And yeah, what's your thoughts on that, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible sort of opportunity for those employees who are working there. They're able to sort of cash out on their shares that they're being sort of pretty allocated as part of their deals for joining them. I think it's one of those things, isn't it? For startups, they often give these incentivizations, and I guess it's a way to retain talent as well, isn't it? So
Yeah.
With that hope, with literally almost like all the big startups trying to nab the talent pool, which is probably quite small relatively. It's a way, I guess, to tie that talent down a little bit and keep them incentivized. So for those who are in that talent pool, it's their way. They're riding that wave, aren't they?
I think that really is actually a great point, which the article does reference further down, is that it's a really big tool in OpenAI's toolbox to keep that top talent in-house, because in this really big, arms war where even domestically companies are trying to desperately poach top talent, how do you hang on to it? And there is a bit of a secret weapon in OpenAI's toolbox, is the ability to offer these stock deals. And if this goes through, there's going to be a lot of people rewarded for joining this startup very early and committing a lot of time to it. So no, I think it's a really good thing from that point of view as well. What do you think about the fact that this company, there's an AI company that's been around for like 10 years ish, give or take, that is now valued will be valued at this phenomenal size in the world? What do you think about that?
Well, it's not even been 10 years, isn't it? What I think we were saying earlier, it's like, what's 2018 roughly? I think they started.
Yeah.
So,
confirm.
yeah, 7 years. I mean, to be honest, it is wild to think that you've got a company.
It has been around 2015. So it's been literally almost 10 years. Yeah.
So, but still, 10 years. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's still, not old. And for, so, considering all those other businesses that have been in the, S&P 500 or whatever it is in America. It is incredible that they're now in the top 20 or whatever it is, most valuable businesses, or will be if it goes through. So it is phenomenal, but it also talks to me about how that just technology is just overtaking every industry by a factor magnitude that we cannot sort of almost comprehend, and that there's probably a lot of old legacy businesses which are just stagnant. And if we look at where the future's going, it's tech. Technology in lots of different shapes and forms. And that's, for anyone who's maybe thinking about careers and things like that, I think it's a smart space to be in, if that makes sense. Having said that, there's a lot of danger now with AI taking a lot of those opportunities away. So it's a really interesting dilemma, and the alarm is kicking in. So we're going to have to move on, Will, to the next story. Sorry about that, guys.
He's giving some wisdom there about careers, but it's the timer. You've got to respect the timer. Let me put the next story up. We have another OpenAI story. This one, we won't linger on OpenAI for too long because I don't think it's the real key detail here. I think there's a wider thing to talk about. And this is the fact that OpenAI have just released their subscription cost that costs less than $5. But it's not for you. I saw it again on Reddit. It's specifically focused on India, offering a subscription for only 399 rupees, which is less than $5. Very, very cheap. It offers 10 times usage over their free platform. And I think that aside, that's what they've done. But the bigger point that I think we should talk about here is how we make technology accessible for other people. Up until this subscription, it was ChatGPT Pro was basically $20 for everybody. No matter where you are in the world, it's $20 equivalent, which is in some places very cheap. In some places, that's very, very, very expensive and unaffordable. And I think there is a personal mission for me as well, but also I know that's shared amongst a lot of people in the technology world, that things like AI should be open and accessible to everyone. And this is an interesting thing to have to deal with because AI is so very, very expensive to develop, run, and so how do you offer it to people, in less advantaged places, or where currencies aren't as strong as the country that you're selling your product from, so say America and India. And I just thought this was really interesting and a really good move to offer a country with a less strong currency, access to this technology. And that's what this article is basically talking about.
It is interesting. So the problem, of course, is the technology itself it still costs the same to, like you're mentioning that, the cost of AI is expensive. So I guess the question is, are they subsidizing it? Are they reducing the quality of the product to the audience?
So let me share my screen again, and you can get a little taste of what OpenAI are specifically doing here. So I click this one. Let me zoom in on the article a tiny little bit. So here is how they position it. So you have your free tier, which everyone has, and then you have this new Go tier, which is 399 rupees. And so it doesn't give you as much usage as the Plus plan, which is, as you can see, 1,999 rupees, which is the equivalent of about $20. But you can see that they haven't given their Plus tier away for less money. They haven't subsidized it in India. They've just put out a plan that has more usage than free, but not as much as Plus. And I think that's probably a smart move, because hopefully that means it's more economically viable for them.
Yeah.
Whilst giving people more access.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're building our product, Ava Mind, which is, for those who don't know, an AI therapeutic assistant, it's available in the App Store and Google Play. We've obviously got a free tier. It's something that's available worldwide. And again, something that I guess we don't have to necessarily think about it, because to a certain extent, the App Store manages the differential in pricing, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, you have granular control if you want to, but for the most part, it basically offers the currency conversions for you, or what you think you should price it in different regions. again, it's whether that becomes economically viable for you as a company varies to what your costs are. But again, a lot of companies opt to just overwrite that and just charge it at the same flat rate depending on which, whatever currency it is equivalent to. So this is an interesting move.
I think this is an interesting one because we're running out of time. We've only got a minute, and there's a lot probably to talk about because it goes to the whole principles of almost economics. If you're building technology in the Western world where the costs are higher, then are you forced then, or are you sort of under pressure to sort of move your location, jurisdiction to a cheaper sort of production place? Because this is of course what happened in the manufacturing space. Manufacturing got outsourced to China because it was cheaper to do that, and China became the economic powerhouse of the world. So is it a move to try and sort of prevent that? I don't know. I mean, I think we've got 10 seconds and we're sort of up. There's a lot to dive into, and I think it's really interesting.
One final point before we move on to the next article is how it goes the other way, and this will literally take 30 seconds. It's the way that it goes the other way. I've seen a lot of feedback of people, because this is only available in certain regions, right? And there's been a lot of feedback already that are like, well, why can't I have the Go tier? I'll pay $3.99.
Yes, there is that, of course.
I don't need the usage of Plus, but I need a little bit more than there is available in free. Why can't I pay $3.99? So again, it's a real hard PR, problem to deal with. So that's my final point.
Well, absolutely. And people in the West might go, well, why have I to pay 20 quid and somebody else is paying $5? It's like, it seems a bit frustrating. So it is an anomaly that we have to deal with in this world where pricing does change so much in terms of value, in terms of how far a currency can buy a good, depending on where it is. If you just travel to Asia, obviously your pounds and dollars go a lot further than they will back home. So it's a real tricky one. But of course, technology is accessible worldwide, which is fantastic, and it's accessible to everyone, which is again an important thing about AI. So yeah, interesting. I guess ultimately, sorry, we're dragging on this point. Ultimately, they do have a free tier. So ultimately, the product is accessible to everyone. Here's a thought. I wonder whether it was more about just we need to drive more conversions because we're not getting enough conversions. And that was it. Maybe so. I guess you'll never know unless you're inside that OpenAI boardroom. They're a company that has been, they appear on the surface quite altruistic. However, there's also been a lot of accusations that it's not so altruistic. So it'll be interesting to find out. Right, moving on. This is the final story. Yes, indeed. There was one other article that I wanted to talk about, but it's a bit long. Maybe we'll do a dedicated video on it. But this is an interesting story nonetheless. Not part of the AI world that I am amazingly familiar with, but one that I think has a lot of depth in which to talk about. And this is talking about China's vision for driverless cars, and also just how much further ahead it is now than it is like reportedly in the US and certainly in the UK where we're from, where we don't really see it at all. This whole article goes over what different Chinese car manufacturers are doing, how well integrated autonomous driving technologies are, and to me, this is a fascinating feature from multiple perspectives. Obviously, it's crazy to think about the technologies on it, like on its surface level, the fact that you can get in a car and it drive you, and the AI works, avoids collisions, deals with several problems. And again, there's the famous trolley cart problem where an accident is unavoidable. One will kill one person, or one choice will kill one person, one choice will kill 5. What does the autonomous car do? That there's this famous problems like that. So on the surface, it's the technology in and of itself is amazing. To think that is rolling out to a society to such a level is mind-blowing. But then the second one, which is this article sort of talks about as well, is that it's strong ties to people's
actual lives. If you get in a car and it's not controlled by you per se and it's driving you, and in a country like China, how does that impact your own personal freedoms? How does that data get fed back to the government? Again, there's a big regulatory push in China as well to bring it under control, and then I'm sure there will be in countries like the US as well to regulate how autonomous driving happens. And there is a legitimate worry from people about privacy data. If this has to be regulated and reported back to government entities wherever you're from, is that a worry? So that's the rundown of this article. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I think the reality is that they're much more integrated in terms of their digital sort of footprint in China. So it probably means that they can accelerate the adoption faster, because it's a massive surveillance state, isn't it? And all the rest of it. So it probably makes it easier in many respects. I've seen videos of lorries, and literally I was talking about this to somebody yesterday. It is wild. The actual physical lorries are no longer look like lorries as we would imagine, with a cab and a space for a driver to go in. They've actually removed the cab, so even if they wanted to, they can't put a human in it. It is literally a box on wheels being driven by a robot. So this is happening in China right now. Interestingly, I also saw somebody a couple of weeks ago in Japan, and he called a taxi, and it was a car this time. It had a place the driver could sit, but it was completely driverless. It is
mind-blowing technology.
It is, and without a shadow of a doubt, this is happening and it is coming. The question is really, which countries are going to be adopting it first, and how is it going to be adopted? I mean, places like the UK are so far behind, it is a joke. I think we'll be probably sort of going back to horse and carriage, if I'm honest with you, the way things are going. But
I think that key question is, like, how will it be adopted? That's the big question in other people, in most people's minds. I think from one, how does autonomous driving deal with certain road problems that humans would deal with, as I said, as referenced the trolley problem. But then secondly, there is, for me personally, is a massive privacy concern to these technologies. Again, for the autonomous car to work, it's going to be powered by the car manufacturers, which will be harvesting the data. There'll be an awful lot of data on your journeys, how the car performed, where you're going, the frequency of usage, and then what happens with that data once it lands in the hands of the companies. Will it be sold? Will it go to government, who will monitor? Will governments have back doors into the systems to allow them to drive the cars? So for me, as you said, it's how will this roll out? There's nothing like getting in a car and just being able to just drive it, and you don't really think about there's data being harvested on you, but it's already happening in the UK with ANPR cameras and CCTV. They know exactly where you're going and track your vehicles. But this could be another level, couldn't it?
Absolutely. We just hit the 5-minute timer, but I think it's worth just sort of reflecting on this a little bit,
lingering on it.
It is. It's. I think one of the big worries from a lot of people's perspectives, including my own, is the way that an overbearing state can and potentially will impact our lives with all of this types of data collection. It's a real worry and a real concern. The problem is, you build an infrastructure that is capable of collecting and harvesting this data, and the current guy or girl in power doesn't do anything bad with it. The next person doesn't do anything bad with it, but there is the toolkit to shut vehicles down, to monitor individual people, to look at their patterns, to prevent people traveling. And when you sort of imagine, okay, well, say everything's built and everyone will always be good and everyone's always going to act in everyone's best interest because that's what, governments should do for their people. You build a toolkit which enables tyranny potentially, and completely, it is very worrying because I think the reality is we don't know what's going to come in 50 years, 20 years, 10 years, 100 years. And, if somebody's got that toolkit that they can actually, monitor, surveillance, stop people from moving, stop people from traveling, and it goes further. It's not just travel. It goes to every digital aspect of your life. You can talk about money. If everything's going to the, maybe we're talking about centralized digital currencies and things like that. It's a real sort of worry that almost this digital toolkit's been built out, which really could cause major problems. And we saw in Canada with those protests with the Canadian truckers. They were having their bank accounts frozen and all sorts. So
it's awful, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'll be honest, we're building this future out, which is phenomenal and it's hugely exciting and it's futuristic and all the rest of it. But I think it goes back to, okay, well, it's probably inevitable that there's going to be a centralization part. So as an individual, you've got to think, well, I think how can you be almost, and as builders, how do you build decentralized systems? What decentralized systems do you plug into, both in terms of AI, in terms of technology, in terms of money? So I think as an individual, it's smart not just to think that, the government is going to do your best, do everything for your best interest. I mean, we've seen that around the world with all sorts of governments. It clearly doesn't happen. So I think as individuals, we just have to be smart and savvy and be tuned into it.
100%. No, I agree completely. It's a very interesting, I think, as you said, it's happening across the board. This autonomous driving is one aspect to think about. But again, as you said, rollouts in all sorts within digital currencies, within AI. What we are producing as people using these technologies is a vast amount of data. And there are companies, if not governments, that know more than ever about our lives and what we're doing, probably better than we do. They know the patterns. And that is something to be concerned about. As you said, you hope that people will act in your best interests. However, they don't. It happens. And that's something to be really wary of. Again, as I said, a personal mission is to put this technology, specifically AI in our case, into the hands of people so it's in their control. There's always going to be an element of centralization, and there's always but I think if you can build out these technology solutions that do empower people as much as possible, not harvest their information, I think that is a really good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in terms of AI, I mean, do you want to just share with the audience, the direction that we're heading in terms of decentralized AI?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I think as we've spoken about, before on this podcast, and where we continue to strive, whether we're working on Mind or another client project, is that we I'm striving massively towards local AI that runs on your device, that doesn't need an internet connection. I think that's the closest future at the moment. I think we're a few years off having the power of the frontier models today running on your phone. And I think that'll be a massive step towards privacy and putting this in the hands of people that need the technology and can benefit from the technology. And yeah, so that's quite simply the core focus at the moment. There are many other things that we can do to put technology in the hands of people, but for another day probably.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just going back to the previous point is the governments can't create or manage this technology or the data or they're not capable. So what tends to happen, it tends to get outsourced to these big companies who are basically, we don't know for sure, of course, but you do wonder whether there is a lot of backhanded deals, arrangements, and all the rest of it with the powers that
Well,
be, with the big boys, with
you say you makes you wonder. There are backhand. There's been several leaks over the years of conversations between organizations within the US government and US-based tech companies, UK-based tech companies, trying to get backdoors, wanting backdoors, some successfully, other times not. But that's the point, is like, it really depends. You hope that companies and governments have your best interests at heart, but they don't always. And it really depends on the company. So
yeah, no, well, the reality is they don't. They have their own interests at heart.
Exactly. And, whether they are the best interests will depend on what you think the best interest is, but often they don't align, in my opinion.
No, agree. So I think it's very, and again, it's unfortunately, I think the reality is the majority of the public are sleepwalking into this dystopian future of control. You talk to anybody out in the wild who's not working in the space, and they literally have no idea. They literally have no idea of what is literally coming. And the reality is, I think this new world will emerge that they just plug into, like they've plugged into every system that they currently live in. So I think that's the worry and the danger, is the majority of people will just walking into this. But for that, for the 1%, the 10%, 5%, whatever percentage, and obviously the more we can increase that percentage, the better, by talking about these things. Then that'll only help those people. It gives people an off ramp to not sort of just be another I guess. Oh, I mean, we're getting dystopian here, but not just another cog in the wheel for the man type thing. So it's interesting. So it is a worry.
I keep echoing. This is what is very interesting about AI specifically, is it brings up these questions like more than ever, which is what's crazy, is that the first time we're colliding within the philosophical, the moral, the ethical, the economical, and now things like privacy, how states are run, how companies are run. I mean, this technology, specifically AI, it permeates everything, and that's what's fascinating. You end up almost by accident going into these deep conversations because the technology prompts it.
And what's interesting is, having this sort of technology around travel, that's going to emerge. And as the world gets more digital and people get more digital, it's going to give states, or the legacy state system, which relies on a physical place, and it gives them the ability then not just to control their population much more, but in a digital world, people become more mobile, which is a real sort of dichotomy for nation states. They don't want their people to be sort of mobile and bouncing from one country to another, or going, I don't like this country, I'm going to go to another country. That's the reality of working in a digital space. And the more digital we become, the more digital society becomes, the more and more people have that ability to sort of go, I'm not sure I like what you're doing, because that's never existed before. So I can also see it where that state control starts, because ultimately that's going to affect their power. That's going to affect their influence. They need to make sure they've got population growth. They need to maintain their GDP. They need to maintain these sort of archaic infrastructures that they've had since millennia. But the world is changing. The world is moving digital, and it's really interesting. So maybe again, a worry is these digital toolkit that's been built out. For example, one example we're talking about here, but there's going to be others, is to control movement of people, and that is a worry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
So what's the moral, Will? Keep your petrol V8.
In this case, I won't be running to switch to autonomous cars. I think they're cool. It's cool technology, and I'd love to have a go just to experience the novelty of it. However, as much as I complain about driving, especially in this country, I don't think I'd be wanting to give up the ability to control it just yet.
No. I'll be honest. There's no way I'm driving an electric car. There's no way. I'm not doing any of that. I'm very happy with petrol and diesel cars and getting a mechanic to fix it when I need it fixed. I'm not plugging it into any computer. And this is me who works in the tech space. I'm not going down that road.
No,
I'm going off grid. Right, well, I'm hiding. See ya. All right, I'm going.
Do you know what? I hear more and more people in technology say that, which I think speaks volumes. And I'm not happy that that's the opinion a lot of people have, especially as people that are pushing the space. But I think something needs to be done. If you're holding that opinion, I think at the very least we need to work on technology that doesn't make you feel like going off grid. And yeah, a lot of the time it does. I think you get a special insight into this world because we work on it and talk to so many people in this world as well. And if you in technology are wanting to go off grid, then there's something wrong there. So I think it's our duty to build at least, or try to build the technology, that doesn't make you feel like doing that.
I agree. No, I agree. I worry the trajectory of the way things are tends to mean that when the toolkit's been built out for governments, they tend to sort of want to and have that ability to control. And we've seen that time and time again. So I worry it's an inevitability. And the question is when, how, what's going to happen, what's that going to look like? We don't know. But it is a real concern. But ultimately, it's almost like bigger government. It's all about bigger government, and that's not what I believe in. I believe in a smaller government. Some people don't, and that's fine. But it just gives them a toolkit to be able to, I guess, influence our lives more and more, which is the point. It's not so much this topic of these autonomous cars going, oh, how cool they are. It's about what does that mean?
It's the underlying.
This is like surface level scratch, and then let's dig deeper. What's it going to mean in 5, 10, 20, 30,
100%.
50 years? What's it going to be like for our children and our children's children? Are we all going to be sort of tagged and sort of monitored and say, oh, you've had your 10 car journeys for the week. You're now no longer you've got to stay in your apartment and the door's locked because we can lock it. It is
100%. It is. A lot of these technologies are very, very, and they all are very exciting on the surface. Autonomous driving being the same thing. But yes, it's the underlying implications which require a lot of conversations. I think we've gone over the 5 minutes.
we may have just slipped over. Guys. So I hope you're still stuck with us, and we didn't spin your heads too much. But that was our little take on the news.
Indeed.
But listen, I think we'll just wrap it up. Let's just leave it there.
I think so.
And we'll catch up with you guys tomorrow.
Absolutely. Let me put the like and subscribe. And catch you tomorrow.
Definitely. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.